Happy day before the day before the day before Christmas, or the first night of Hanukkah, depending upon your point of view. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, and we are going to finish off our look into 4th edition D&D. Apparently I got a few things wrong, but generally it's still like there's no reason why people hate this game as much as they hate this game. I mean, a lot of horrible bad choices were made, business-wise, whatever. They rushed it out. It wasn't really what people wanted. It was so drastically different from what people were used to, and the way they went about every choice basically they made was just a bad choice. And there was a lot of just little things that they could have done to maybe make it better. And probably the best, in my humble opinion, they could have done to make 4th edition D&D work is the Eberon license. Now, Wizards of the Coast had done this contest, submit your idea for a game world kind of thing, and the winner would be published by them, and the winner was Eberon. If you're not familiar with the Eberon setting, it's sort of this steampunk, arcane punk, blimps, robots, magic, weird battle. If you're familiar with the Battle Chasers type of stuff, just basically arcane punk, steampunk kind of stuff. But a lot of people liked it because it was just so different than D&D, and of course you could have player character Warforged, which were just unbelievably broken compared to your normal stuff. It had artifactors, it had guns, it had all the things that, Saturday morning D&D, beer and pretzel D&D, science fantasy had already in it, but now here it was officially, you could be a robot with a gun who's also a monk! And a lot of people found ways to just really abuse it. So they had this license for 3.5, and then 3.5, of course, goes away, and they're announcing 4th edition, and they just kind of throw 4th at us, and they say all these things, and it's kind of like just so drastically different than what people are used to. A lot of people just go like, whoa, I don't understand. And you can sort of understand their thinking, even though their thinking did ostracize their older fan base, but they were trying to capture a newer fan base. It was post-video game, post-Magic the Gathering, into the digital empire that was budgeting with the internet and everything, and they wanted to appeal to a more, video game World of Warcraft. Let's make it more like that kind of thing, whatever. Choices they made, some are good, some are bad. There are definitely, like I've said, ideas in 4th edition I like. And then the rest of it was just, normal. Here's a wizard. Here's a fighter. Here's a guy who's a bug, whatever. Who cares about it's D&D. Hindsight being 2020. I think we all agree that Wizards of the Coast, after they were closing down the chapter on 3.5, should have either released a Eberon role-playing game or a Magic the Gathering role-playing game. And not said, this is Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, just released it under their own OGL, using the 6 stats, using stuff we recognize, but also using the new stuff they wanted to experiment with. Maybe make it a smaller, slightly cheaper product, or a zine product, or whatever, and say, okay, we're putting out the Eberon role-playing game. We have the rights to this world, and everything that this guy came up with for this world. So here is Eberon, the role-playing game, or Eberon, the board game, or Eberon, the action fantasy game, or whatever you want to call it. And you do that for about 6 months to a year. Or you do the Magic the Gathering role-playing game, using the new rule set, with all the new stuff. But you don't ever call it Dungeons & Dragons. You call it the Eberon role-playing game, or the Magic the Gathering role-playing game, or Greyhawk the role-playing game, or Birthright, or whatever. Any of the licenses they already had that we were nostalgically familiar with, or basically push the fuck out of Eberon, but never actually call it D&D. Then, after about 6 months, a year, check the waters. Does this have a fan base? Is this working? Are people really into this new system that is enough different than D&D that people are gonna well, that's not D&D. And if it's a positive response, if people are really oh my god, this is amazing, I love this world, I love this system, I love this, then hey, What would you think if this was the new edition of Dungeons & Dragons? If we use this rule set for 4th edition? Or if people are like, oh my god, this is awful, this is the worst role-playing game engine I have seen since Fatal. What the fuck were you thinking, Wizards of the Coast? Then they could have said, okay, this isn't working. We need to make something that people will like. Because obviously this engine we came up with, that we might have been 4th edition, this Eberon engine, isn't getting a fan base. So let's make something else and call that 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. The Eberon license, the Wizards of the Coast licenses, you know, Dark Sun, whatever, Eberon, Greyhawk, Magic the Gathering. They could have had a nice cushion of like a year between the end of 3rd and the introduction of 4th, where they could have experimented, where they could have seen people actually using this system, which was hardly play tested at all. Playing the system, responding to the system. They could have won it at cons. They could have done official game store related things, but just by not putting the D&D title on it would have made a huge, catastrophically huge difference for that year. They could have tested this system and tested the public's response to the system without the sword of Damocles hanging over their head that is the words Dungeons and Dragons, because the second you use those words, certain expectations develop, now more so than ever. Then at the end of that trial period, they could have said, hey, do you like this system? And if people said yes, then they could have said, hey, what do you think about this being the new 4th edition? Or the next edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and people were like, oh, yeah, I'm already used to it. It's been a great, yeah, okay. But if people said, no, I do not like this, like a lot of people did in response to 4th, for, you know, reasons. I don't like change. Then they could have been like, okay, this isn't working. What do we do? All right, well, let's just, you know, focus on Magic and board games for like a couple months and play test another version and then see if they like that. You know, it's called product testing. You test the product with some people, and if they like it, you push the product. And if they don't like it, you change the product. Wizards of the Coast didn't do that with 4th. They just kind of went, ah! And when 4th failed, they're just like, okay, we're going to abandon it and focus on board games for a while we get some guys to write 5th. So, yeah. Hindsight, in closing, every choice, every single, and I've said this since the beginning of my multiple reviews of 4th edition, and this is probably, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. I think I've said everything that can be said about 4th. I mean, there's people who are just polarized on one end who just absolutely hate it for no understandable reason still, and then the rest of the people are either like, whatever, I don't care. Or the few small people who are like still like playing it and going, hey, I enjoyed this system, whatever. Okay. But yeah, I think it's safe to say, as we bring this discussion to an end, really just bad choice after bad choice after bad choice after bad choice after bad choice, and never once taking a moment to go, hey, we're making bad choices and maybe we should, I don't know, take a break. No, they were just like, oh, no, we're just, you know, we're already in the lava. We might as well swim to the bottom and see if there's something down there we can use. Oh, here I am at the bottom of the lava on this field of razor blades, but as long as I'm already down here, I might as well stick my hand in this hole. Oh, this hole is a garbage disposal? Oh, well, I've already got my hand in the hole. I mean, that was just the kind of thought patterns that the Wizards of the Coast Hasbro people were making. Like, just every stupid choice they made, they backed up with another stupid choice instead of taking a 5-second break and going, wow, we're really making a lot of stupid choices and we're ostracizing our fan base. Maybe we should rethink this. But they didn't. And that's probably the reason why people hate 4th so much, is how they feel they were treated by Wizards of the Coast. Why you can still hate it 10, 15, 20 years later, however long it's been, whatever. Just, you know, you get an idea in your head, it's hard to change that idea. But really, all that they could have done to save 4th edition and make it a viable stopgap between 3rd and 5th is to not call it Dungeons & Dragons. Call it the Eberon role-playing system. Call it the Magic the Gathering role-playing system. Call it the Greyhawk role-playing system, the Dark Sun, Birthright, whatever. They had so many licenses. And then just try it for a year. And then at the end of that year, is it working? Great. Now see if they want this to be D&D, or no, it's not working. Let's try something else. Product testing. Product testing and customer service were all they needed to make that chunk of history completely different. But it's great to sit here on my iron throne in my castle and go, oh, these are the choices you made and they were dumb and this is what you should have done because I have an opinion. Whatever. It happened. It's over. It's done with. Let's move on to all the reasons why we hate Fifth. I will talk to you soon. Happy holidays, losers.